In this story, a man does everything he is supposed to do. He studies, he listens to his father, he marries properly, he obeys the law, and it costs him everything. What follows is not a story about heroes or villains, but about what happens when power decides who is protected and who is expendable. Welcome to Jared Tells Tales. Let's begin. In Guangping, a flat farming region in northern China, a poor scholar named Feng Xiangru lived with his elderly father. Their house was small, their income uncertain, and their lives followed the same narrow routine day after day. In a place like this, everyone knew who you were and what you were worth. The scholar's father believed deeply in discipline, reputation, and moral conduct. Both father and son had studied the Confucian classics and once expected advancement through the civil service examinations. Instead, years passed, prospects faded, and poverty became permanent. With the death of his father's wife and Feng's first wife, the household collapsed into silence. Father and son cooked for themselves, cleaned for themselves, and endured without help. Neighbors kept their distance. One evening, as Feng sat outside under the moon, he noticed movement along the wall separating his home from the neighbor's yard. A young woman stood there, watching him openly, without fear or hesitation. "Why are you staring at me like that?" Feng asked, half joking, half wary. Instead of fleeing, she climbed down from the wall. "I was curious," she said calmly. "You sit alone every night." She introduced herself as Hongu, which means red jade, and said she lived nearby. Her voice was steady, as if nothing about the meeting was unusual. That night, she stayed. Hongu returned again the next night, and then again. She came only at night and left before dawn. "You should stop coming," Feng said once quietly. "If my father sees you—" "He won't," she replied, "and if he does, you'll know what to do." At first, Feng worried about discovery, but as weeks passed, the visits became familiar. Nothing was promised, nothing was discussed. Life continued. One night, though, his father heard laughter coming from Feng's room. He stopped in the hallway, listened, then pushed the door open. "What is this?" his father demanded. "What disgrace have you brought into this house?" He dragged Feng outside beneath the moonlight. "You neglect your studies, you waste your life, you think reputation grows back once it's destroyed?" Feng tried to answer, but his father turned instead to Hongu, who had just stepped outside. "Leave, you have no place here." "She climbed walls to reach you," he said, pointing at Feng. "Do you think a future built like that ends well?" He warned that her presence would ruin his son's future and disgrace the household beyond repair, then ordered her never to return. Later that night, Hongu snuck back and spoke quietly to Feng. "He's right about one thing," she said. "There is no lawful path for us. No matchmaker, no parental consent, no future that doesn't end badly." The next night, she returned once more. This time, she placed 40 ounces of silver on the table. "Take this," she said. "There is another woman in a nearby village. Her family wants more than they can ask. With this, you can marry properly." Feng stared at the silver. "Why are you doing this?" "So you can live," she said, "the right way." Using the silver without telling his father where it came from, Feng traveled to meet the Wei family. "This is enough," the father said, weighing the silver in his hands. "We can talk now." Negotiations ended quickly. A marriage contract was written, and the match was settled. Feng's new wife came to live with him. She was quiet, diligent, and careful with money. "You choose well," his father admitted one evening. "Don't waste it." Gradually, the household stabilized. Even his father's disapproval softened. 2 years later, a son was born. He was named Fu'er. Watching the child sleep, Feng allowed himself to believe his life might finally continue without interference. That belief did not last. During a visit to the family graves, Feng's wife noticed a man standing nearby, watching too closely. Word soon came that the man was Song, a former official whose influence had never truly faded. Song's servant arrived days later. "My master is willing to be generous," the man said. He will take your wife and leave you with enough silver to start over. Feng's answer was immediate. Go back and tell him no. When he told his father what had happened, his father struck the table with fury. Does he think that we are livestock? His father said. That we can be traded? The old man went out and confronted Song's servants publicly. Tell your master, he shouted, that this house still has men in it. The response was swift. Armed men arrived before dawn. They beat both father and son without restraint. As the blows fell, Feng's wife ran outside screaming. Help, she cried. She was seized and carried away. Inside the house, the child cried alone while neighbors watched in silence, unwilling to be next. His father, badly injured and consumed by rage, soon began coughing up blood. Remember what they did to us, the old man whispered, struggling for breath. Remember who did it. He died soon later. Not long after, word arrived that Feng's wife had taken her own life rather than submit. Feng sought justice relentlessly. I demand a hearing, he said at one office. This is not our concern, he was told. At another office, he was waved away without being heard. Officials protected one another and were afraid of Song. No one was willing to act. One night, a tall, bearded stranger came to his door. You're still breathing? The man said. Why? Feng stared at him. Who are you? Someone who knows what was taken from you, the stranger replied, and what you failed to take back. Feng said nothing. The stranger shook his head. Weakness invites repetition, he said, and then turned to leave. Some debts don't wait forever. Soon after, Song and several members of his household were found dead. No witnesses came forward. No explanation satisfied anyone. Fear spread quickly, but no one spoke openly about what they suspected. The authorities blamed Feng. Confess, they told him, it will be easier. I did nothing, Feng said. He was beaten, imprisoned, and stripped of his degree. His child was taken from him and abandoned by the roadside. After his release, Feng returned home alone. Months passed. He recovered his wife's remains and buried them, believing his family line had ended. Then one night there was a knock at the door. Hongu stood outside, holding his son, Fu'er. You're alive, Feng said, barely able to speak. So is your son, she replied. Only then did she explain what had been happening. I was never human, she said. I am a fox spirit. She told him that beings like her lived long lives and saw what humans often missed. When your house was destroyed and your child was left crying, she said, I heard him. We hear things like that. She had taken the child away before anyone else could find him and raised him safely. Then she spoke of the stranger. He was like me, she said, not bound by officials or fear. He came because the end had already begun. Hongu told Feng that the silver, the child, and the timing of her return were never accidents. I helped you live properly, she said. I protected what remained, and I waited until everything else had finished taking from you. She looked at him and said quietly, I did all of this so that, when it was finally over, I could be with you. Stories like this survive because they show how justice sometimes arrives sideways, late, imperfect, and carried out by those outside the rules. They ask what it means to be repaid when nothing lost can truly be returned, and whether simply surviving and continuing on becomes the only answer left. If you enjoy strange, mythic stories drawn from old texts, you can support Jared Tells Tales by liking this video, subscribing, or becoming a member by clicking Join below. Members receive early access to stories and help this channel survive. Now, if something in this story moved you, feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below. I'll see you in the next story.